So imagine you or your family member started to hear voices telling you to kill yourself. Perhaps you're watching TV and you think they're speaking to you. How that may cause desperation and impact on your life. So my area of work has been in psychosis. I can't tell if you're moving forward. No, but I haven't done my 15 seconds. So I've been curious about models where people have better outcomes. So I saw the Finnish study of the open dialogue, which had been done over a series of time and had remarkable outcomes, and was curious about how we might be able to bring that into the U.S. What was the open dialogue? These are their 7 principles. 5 of them are really more around an organizational level, and the last 2 are more specific to what happens in their network meetings. And I'll talk more about that. But why would we even want to bring in open dialogue? Well, one, our outcomes aren't good enough. We don't really engage families in process of treatment. And patients often feel like they aren't treated with dignity. So when I tried to even bring the model to the U.S. and see if I could disseminate it and implement it, so there were a lot of gaps. There was no protocol. There was no fidelity manuals, tools to train people. I had a history of research through the NIH and using this common staging model. Get $1 million and do stage 1, have a good idea, create a manual fidelity scale, training program, implement fidelity, and then move it all the way up to a D&I kind of project. These are some of the projects I'm doing here at UCSD, including defining the open dialogue model and then testing it out both globally in 10 different countries as well as in the U.S. So at first I was an anthropologist going over to Finland to listen and see what they were doing with their patients. And who wouldn't want their clinician to have deep listening and engage their family and treat them with respect? And they had a lot of models. One of my adventures was to go to all those little blue dots in Denmark and see what they were doing. Just watch and observe and be in the trench. From all of this work, we came up with the 12 key elements. This is now the gold standard for the open dialogue approach and has been translated in 10 different languages, including Mandarin, Chinese, Japanese, Polish, many different countries. These are what happens in the network meetings. This was my raters put together this tool because one of the things we're doing is assessing a network meeting of the family, the patient, and the clinicians to see, are you doing something in an open dialogue manner? Another study we did was we surveyed all the countries of people who just implemented the model, and we have about 15 countries and 30 different programs. And these are some of the questions that we asked, and they're similar to what a lot of people have raised already here. So in addition to the fidelity that occurs in a network treatment meeting, we also saw that there were organizational changes that occurred commonly across the agencies, and these are some of the criteria that we used. Something that hasn't been talked as much about today, and I'm curious we'll maybe talk more about it, is change management. So in addition to whatever model you use, and there are many of them, what change management model? This is my model of addressing problems through organizational change, which I could talk about at another point. We used the re-aim model as a structure with which to study our process of implementation science, but we also had the change management model, which I point out as being different. Some of the studies going here in the U.S., and you can see just the diversity of different sites. All of these are going to be quite different, so we're learning a lot of different things in these range of different settings in our first paper that came out using this model. Now, sometimes it's not only the research literature, but it's the New York Times, it's the Boston Globe, getting ahead of our research because of such interest by the consumers. You could Google search open dialogue and you'll find more of the consumers looking at it. This is an example of 2 kinds of studies. One in Italy, funded with the Italian government, all those different sites, very structured, versus the Latvian project where For the first time, I got the community group together and the psychiatrists together, and they had never been together. But the community group did know about the open dialogue. We have a large $2.6 million grant in the UK, and these are some of the questions. And you can see only one of them is looking at efficacy. Here are some of the lessons we learned. Very positive outcomes from the patient's perspective, the staff, as well as the family, and where we saw differences, particularly around cost issues, and the structure and culture of the different places. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One question from the audience?
So you're working with many different cultures. What kinds of challenges or opportunities does that offer?
Well, there's so many. Let's start with, it's a lot easier to work in the UK, Australia, and the US for me personally. The language barrier can be an issue. My parents came off the boat from Latvia, so oddly, Latvians embrace me, and I don't even know them, and my last name means springtime, so there's a cultural connection that is irrational, but many of them will speak English. So I would say at a primitive level, it often is just really understanding the culture, making sure that you have a bilingual, bicultural person in the context of seeing where the differences are. Europe and Asia highly value the family, and it's intimately built into the work there and very easy. In the U.S., we have HIPAA rules and all kinds of other things that get in the way, and our clinicians aren't as, we may give lip service to family work, but we don't really engage them. A lot of the work is really kind of teaching clinicians how to bring in family members and how to do that. So I would say that Finland, when it started, very homogenous population where you saw the little arrow, Tornio, right south of the reindeers, ruralish kind of neighborhood. They were able to manage certain issues easily. But I would say funding is a big one for the model. Some places fund mental health better than others. How do you scramble with your resources? Other small things. One of the emphases of the model is for deep listening. So think of New York and California and how much space is people allow when you're just talking. I go to Finland and it's like 10 seconds before somebody decides to follow up in the conversation. So I'd say that was some of the range of practical things with money, language, but even just the culture of how people talk with each other and show respect and dignity, which is a core part of the model.